We're going to be talking about keeping our cool when emotions run high, danger phrases and power phrases, professional strategies to use when we need to deliver a message that we know the person does not want to hear, and of course, our principle of the week. What I wanted to talk to you first about was how to help control our emotions when emotions are running high. Many times, somebody will say things to us, and they'll push a button that makes us feel a certain way right away. And we know before I go ahead and respond to that, I have to take a moment to chill out. And most people do not have a process to go through while they're taking a moment to chill out. This is going to be a process that you can use the next time you have to do that. Many times people will simply stop and count to 10. You know what I'm saying? Don't do that. That's too easy. That comes from hemisphere stimulation, where you want to stimulate that left-hand side of the brain, which will draw you out of emotions. However, it's way too easy to simply stop and count to 10 or to count from 10 backwards to 0. Anyone can do that. So instead, what I would like you to do is right now, take a moment and recite your phone number backwards, including the area code. Okay? Go. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, hey, buddy. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did you do it? Chances are when you did it, you stopped and you did this. And you looked over to the left, because when we stop and access information that lives in the left-hand side of the brain, our eyes actually go to the left as if we are, oh, see, buddy, as if we are searching information that lives in that side of the brain. It's funny because I don't know if we've talked about this before, but when you ask someone a question, you can generally see what side of the brain they're accessing, because if I were to stop and ask you, hey, what happened last Thursday night? And you were to stop and look up to the left, that signals you're accessing memory. What a lot of people do is they'll do this. And then they'll answer because they're thinking, what happened? Yeah, I don't want to tell them that. And then they'll go to the right-hand side to think of something creative to tell you. So you can many times see what side of the brain people are accessing, almost all the time, actually, simply by watching their eyes. And when you have to stop and regain your composure a little bit, do something that is probably going to trigger you to look to the left-hand side, such as reciting your phone number backwards, including the area code. You can also do math equations in your head. For example, if you were to have to stop and think, what's 17 times 3? Cool. That creates left-hand stimulation, again, drawing you out of the right-hand side of the brain a bit. Or if you want to stop and count backwards from 100 by 7. Now, the trick is you have to actually finish these exercises. You have to actually get to 1. You have to actually solve the math equation. You have to actually recite your phone number backwards, including the area code. And what that will do is force you to use the left-hand side of the brain, drawing you out of the right-hand side. Also, another thing you might find that handy for is if you forget, let's say, your PIN number for a credit card, or a phone number, instead of simply trying to remember, what is it, which naturally, by the way, we will look over to the left as we think. Instead, stop and do things such as the things we just did. Stop and recite your phone number backwards. Do math equations. Count backwards from 100 by 7. And doing that will stimulate the side of the brain where that information lives. And you will all of a sudden start to remember things that you had forgotten because you're using the muscle, so to speak, where that information lives, where it comes from. So knowing how the brain works, how it affects our thought process, how it affects our emotions, how it affects our communication, and how we can work with that is going to really boost your level of communication success. And it's also going to put you in a league of communicators that is truly an elite league. Most people do not have strategies to help keep their emotions under check. And I realize you can't throw your emotions out the window. I know that. But remember, we talked about coping statements where you stop and you think, I am cool, calm, and collected. Giving your brain the information that it needs in the correct syntax, using things such as coping statements, hemisphere stimulation, at times hemisphere synchronization, helps you take control over your brain and how it's affecting the way you communicate, rather than simply vice versa. And if you take a few moments today to practice techniques such as these, you will be so different in how you respond to communication situations in the future, because you will have tools that help you overcome the thousands of years of programming that have gone into making us really go crazy when emotions start to take hold of us. So our very last strategy I would like to talk about isn't so much about brain training. It's more about knowing what the basic steps are to disengage when we feel emotions running high. For example, let's say that we have a problem with our boss, or we have a problem with a coworker or a customer, and they've gotten to us. It happens to all of us. We want to let that go. Remember that when you want to let it go and disengage, there is a 3-step process that if you go through it systematically, you will have better results than if you simply stop and think, gotta let it go. I am peace. Serenity now. Do you ever watch Seinfeld? Don't just stop and think serenity now. Instead, number 1, you want to stop and disengage physically, meaning take a walk if you possibly can. Most people on their break time go to the coffee room, sit down and have a soda. Don't do that. Instead, take a walk around the block. If you can find a place to stretch, for example, a lot of people work from home. If you can find a place to stretch, do yoga poses. I'm not a yogi, but if you can stop and do things like that, if you can stop and go for a bike ride, exercise a little bit, jump on a treadmill. If you are an exerciser, you know that after exercising for a good 15, 20 minutes, you feel really different because that forces your body to release chemicals that make you feel good. It's better than any drug you could possibly take. So put down the Xanax and go for a walk or get on the treadmill. And what happens is you feel better because your brain has released drugs. All those drugs out there that try to make us feel good, the Prozacs and the Xanax and the whatever, those are simply trying to mimic the beautiful natural pharmacy we already have in our brains. You can stimulate that by doing things such as disengaging physically, going for a walk, 15, 20 minutes, taking a bike ride, stretching can help you change your biochemical state. That is disengaging physically, step number 1. Disengaging mentally is a 3-step process as well. So it's kind of a sub-process within this process. To disengage mentally, you want to, number 1, ask yourself, what are the objective facts? What truly is going on here? And ask yourself, what is their role in this? What is this person's role? For example, okay, they called me a name. That's their role. What is my role in this? And if you think my role in this is nothing, you are incorrect. Stop and think about what is your role that is causing you to feel the way you feel. For example, I'm believing that what they say is correct. That could be it. I'm hurt by what they say. That could be it. I engaged with them and showed a not so nice side of me when I called them a name back. Whatever it is, what is your role? I'm not being fair and flexible. I'm not listening to them. I don't understand them. All of those things could apply in most situations. Ask yourself, what is the role that I'm playing in this situation that has gotten me to this point? Because if it had nothing to do with you, you wouldn't feel anything about it. And then step number 3, what are my options? For example, I can talk to them. I can let it go. I can choose to say, it's okay, which is really a choice that we can make so often to say, maybe it's okay that they think that about me. Do you know how liberating it is to be able to say to yourself and really believe it? They think I'm a fool. What if that were okay? That person doesn't love me anymore. What if that's okay? That person left me. They abandoned me. They humiliated me. They betrayed me, whatever. What if that's all okay? Ask yourself that. What are my options here? And when you're making your options, I could talk to them. I could let it go and say it's okay, which is not always the right option. I'm just putting that out there. I can create a business tool, for example. Let's say that the time sucker is sucking time from you. You could create a availability monitor and use that. What are my options? And then once you have done that, step number 3 in the whole process is to disengage verbally. If you have not disengaged by step number 2, you want to then approach the person and use one of the scripts. That's when you disengage verbally, you're not just winging it and saying what's on your brain because your brain isn't working right at that moment. Recognize that. So step number 3 is when you disengage verbally to use a tool such as a freestyle script, some power phrases. Use something that is not natural because naturally we are emotionally charged and are going to probably say the wrong thing. So you want to disengage verbally is step number 3. And you want to do that coming from a place of kindness. We're going to talk about at the end of this lesson, for example, if somebody has gotten you going. Remember during this disengaging process, when you're disengaging physically, disengaging mentally, and then you disengage verbally, remember that person is innocent. They really are. Keeping that in mind, once you have gone through that process, you will be able to disengage like a master. Most people can't disengage ever. They hold things in and they end up bringing these issues home with them. They wash dishes with difficult people. They eat dinner with the gossips and backstabbers at work. They sleep with the gossips and backstabbers and difficult customers. Don't do that. Disengage. And there's a very simple process. We just went through it. So keep your flashcard out this week. If you have a problem, if you struggle with disengaging and letting things go, keep that flashcard out this week. Practice your hemisphere synchronization, practice your hemisphere stimulation, and practice the 3-step process to disengaging, and you will take giant leaps and bounds to controlling your emotions and actually overcoming your emotions so that you can become a more savvy, polished professional communicator. And now we have come to our danger and power phrases for the week. I have 3 danger phrases for you this week. The first one is for home, and it is, I'm not mad. You know what I mean? When we are angry sometimes, people will say to us, why are you so mad? And we'll say, I'm not mad. And then what we'll say is things like, I'm disappointed. And that's not true. We are mad. We are angry. You might be angry and disappointed. However, do not say, I'm not mad when you're angry. It's okay. There are many ways to say I'm mad. I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm mad. And you can also, when we are going to say that phrase, hey, buddy, you can say things such as, I'm angry because what you did hurt me. I'm angry because you lied to me. I'm angry because you betrayed me. But then we can also follow it up with, however, I realize we all make mistakes and we're going to get past this. But at this moment, yes, I'm angry. You can always say this. You can always tell people, I realize we're human beings and we're going to get past this, but yes, I am angry right now. And that's okay. So remember, at home and at work, do not say, I'm not mad, I'm not angry, when you are. And especially don't try to replace one emotion with another and say things such as, I'm not angry, I'm just disappointed. You might be angry and disappointed. However, don't say you're not angry when you are. That takes away from the value of our emotions. And that's one of the last things we want to do when we are assertive communicators. Your other 2 danger phrases are for work. Danger phrase number 1. What's danger phrase number 1? Oh, danger phrase number 1. This is a biggie. It's something you never say to your boss. I have to talk to you about so-and-so. I have to talk to you about Mary. I have to talk to you about John. Don't ever do that. If you have a situation with a coworker that's a communication situation. Now, for example, if you have to tell your boss, hey, I need to tell you that Mary is sabotaging our widgets. Therefore, flight number 339 is in danger of crashing. That's something you want to bring to your boss. However, if you are having a personality problem, so-and-so is just ruining your life. So-and-so won't stop gossiping. So-and-so is so negative. So-and-so is really a problem. Don't ever, 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 never bring that to your boss, ever. Your boss might say things to you such as, well, I have an open door policy. And you might think, oh, good, because I'm having this struggle and they're so wise. They're so great. They're so good to talk to. I don't care how good your boss is to talk to. They don't want to talk to you about interpersonal challenges that you're having with other employees. And if you're a boss, you know this. Our favorite employees are those who never come to us with issues about other employees. So remember, the next time you're about to come to your boss and say, could I just ask you how to deal with this? Can I just talk to you about so-and-so? I'm really having a problem with yada, yada. Don't ever, 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 ever do that again. That is a delete phrase. It is your job to talk to that person and work through that, overcome whatever situation you have. And bosses know that. So they don't need to know, nor do they want to know what situations you have overcome. But if you never come to them with personality conflicts, they know that what that means is you're overcoming them. You're overcoming them all by yourself. And that puts you in a different category of communicators and a different category of professionals. So remember, you will never again from this day forward have an issue that you will bring to your boss about another employee that's a personal, interpersonal, or communication issue. And the third thing that is our danger phrase for the week. This is also for your boss. You never say this to your boss. Did you read my email? Didn't you read my email? Didn't you read my email? We will say to our bosses sometimes things about what we have put it in email. We'll be talking about an upcoming event. We'll be talking about a project, whatever we're talking about. And our boss will ask us a question. We'll say things such as, didn't you read my email? Because we sent out an email on that. And everybody should be reading our emails because they're so important. If I took time to memorialize my thoughts, by gum, everybody should be reading it and committing it to memory. And that is not the case, especially with our bosses. Many times, we don't know how many bosses our email gets. It's none of our business. And it is none of our business whether our bosses do or do not read our emails. That's sometimes a difficult pill for many of us to swallow. It is none of our business if our bosses do or do not open and read our emails. So if our boss says to us something that makes us think, well, I put that in an email, all you do is simply state what you wrote in the email, because the phrase, didn't you read my email, is insubordinate, it's rude, and it's offensive. And it gets most bosses thinking, don't ask me questions like that. It's not up to you to decide if I read your emails or if I commit them to memory. Maybe I did read your email and I forgot. Why would I explain this to you? You're here as my employee. So remember, delete phrase, didn't you read my email or did you read my email? Delete phrase, I have to talk to you about yada, yada, yada. And especially at home and work, delete phrase, I'm not man. Those are your 3 danger phrases for the week. And as you probably noticed, they don't really have power phrases to go along with them. Those are things you want to write down on your danger phrase list. And I hope that you have your danger phrase list visible, because it should be. If it's in front of you on your desk or wherever it may be, look at it and remind yourself this week to purge those from your verbal repertoire. And again, you will take huge steps in your communication success, and you will project a different image. Especially when you delete those phrases, you will project an image of a more together, polished professional. So those are your danger phrases for the week. And now I'm going to give you 2 techniques that you can use. Not necessarily you're dealing with an exploder or a time bomb, but you're dealing with a difficult situation. For example, you need to tell a customer, you've been on hold all afternoon. Well, I'm going to need to ask you to call a different number. Or you need to tell a customer, your order's not going to be ready for another week, or whatever you think might be frustrating for a customer or a coworker or a boss, but this is generally used with customers. When you have that type of a message that you need to deliver, remember that if you know that what you're about to say is going to upset someone, they know you know that what you're saying is going to be upsetting. And what's even more upsetting is when the people that are delivering difficult messages to us, like the operators on 1-800 numbers that tell us that we have to call a different number even though we've been on hold all day, when they tell us things like that and they behave as if it's not important, it's not bothering you, it's just normal protocol, that makes it even more aggravating. So what I'd like to give you now is what's called the preemptive strike. The preemptive strike is a technique that you can use the next time you have to deliver one of those messages that you know is difficult or that you know is going to be aggravating. Tell them right out, I realize this is going to be frustrating for you to hear, but then deliver the message. Or, I know this is going to aggravate you and I apologize for that. However, and then deliver your message. I know that this might only add to your frustration for the day. However, then deliver your message. So whatever you think is going to happen when you deliver the message, if they're going to get more aggravated, frustrated, angry, whatever it is, if we come out and tell them that beforehand, it actually takes away from some of the emotion that's going to come after it, because people will think, well, at least they're a human being acknowledging that I'm a human being, rather than simply stating the message as if we're not human beings. So try that technique. Many of us are very hesitant to tell people, I know that I'm about to say something that's going to make you angry, because we somehow think that's going to make them angry if they wouldn't otherwise been angry. That's not true. In fact, many times you'll hear people say, oh, well, I realize that you're doing your best, or, oh, no, it's actually not that bad, or, oh, I might have expected that. When if you had not said it, they would have gotten angry or frustrated. So remember, take those messages that you deliver a lot, that you know are messages that customers or employees or whomever do not want to hear. Start prefacing them with a preemptive strike, a phrase that begins with, I realize, I understand, I know, and watch how they will be less aggravating in the long run because you acknowledged them in advance. That is a preemptive strike. And your last communication technique for the week is a 3-step bonding process. This 3-step bonding process is something that you can use when you're dealing with someone. It could be a coworker. It could be an employee, or it could be a customer when you need to bond with them. I'm going to step back. Back in World War II, the Japanese would capture many American soldiers, and more than any time before in history, those Japanese were able to bond with the U.S. soldiers and get secrets from them and make friends with them and get information from them easily, much more easily than ever before in history. Our soldiers, the U.S. soldiers, were signing documents saying, you know what, the Japanese aren't so bad, I guess I'm going to tell them stuff. And our government was saying, how did you do that? Why is it so easy for you to get so many of our soldiers on your side? Because that's pretty much as adversarial as it can get. I'm sure you would agree. Soldiers in a wartime environment with the enemy, how are they able to bond with them? Because there are many people that, if we're having a difficult time with them, really, if we could simply bond with them and gain trust, we could overcome our challenges much more easily. After the war was over, the Japanese came out and said, well, it was actually pretty easy. We kept using a 3-step process, and I'm going to give that 3-step process to you now. Step number 1, tell a secret. Step number 2, make a confession. Step number 3, ask a favor. You'll see lots of, now I don't want you to do this like a Best Buy salesman, because now Best Buy, I love Best Buy, but for example, I'll go into Best Buy and I'll say, what's the difference between those 2 televisions? They look the same, but one of them is much more expensive than the other. Why? And the salesperson, I don't know what they get, but they're really good. They learn some super hot strategies and deliver them very well. They'll say things to me such as, let me tell you a secret. Those 2 televisions are nearly identical. The only reason that expensive one is more expensive than the cheaper one is because the expensive one was actually last year's model, and it just cost more to create that technology last year than it did this year. In fact, I normally wouldn't tell this to people, but I have to confess. Since you asked, if I were to buy one of those 2, I would get the cheaper one because it's cheaper, it's newer, and it's better. Just happens to be more expensive. But do me a favor. Don't tell my boss that I told you that. And don't tell anyone else that I told you that. Okay, just keep that between you and me. And even when I hear that, like when I go to Best Buy, many times they'll deliver strategies to me that I'm very aware of. But even when I hear it, I'm thinking, oh, you just gave me the 3-step bonding process. Do it more, I like it. And I'll buy the TV because I can't help it. People will ask me many times, what if I use a feel, felt, found or the 3-step bonding strategy and the person to whom I'm delivering the strategy is aware of it? I'll say, great. I'm sure they'll appreciate that. Think, well, I trust you even more now that I know you're a savvy communicator, and they'll go along with your way of thinking like I do. But you can use that in many situations. At work, for example, if you have a troubled employee and you think, I know that they're really good at their job, but they're just, for some reason, they might have a problem with me and I don't know what it is. Sit down with them and say something. Hello, Susie. Or Mark, or whatever your name is. I have to tell you a secret. When I started here, now I'm going to summarize. You don't want to just secret, confession, favor, but you might. But when I started working here, I hated it. My boss was just a tyrant. He was a horrible boss. And we had lots of problems that really affected my job and my personal life, really. In fact, I have to confess something to you. I stayed late one night at work and made 100 resumes on company paper and sent them out to all of our competitors and was about to walk out the door, actually. And I had a real great resignation letter waiting for my boss. But then everything turned around and I learned what was right and I learned what was wrong and yada, yada. I'm getting to the end. But do me a favor, Mark or Trixie or Susie. If you ever feel like you want to leave here, I understand, because this may or may not be the place for you in the long run. But just before you go, remember my door is always open. The coffee pot's always on. So do me a favor and stop by and let me know what's on your mind and why you might be leaving so that I can improve and maybe not lose somebody as good as you in the future, okay? And people at that point might say something like, yeah, whatever, because this is the first time you've ever bonded with them, but watch. They'll come sniffing around your door. Hey, how's it going? See, and if it's true that you are genuine as you are, because when I give a strategy such as secret, confession, favor, it's not to be somehow fake or phony. It's because I want to bond with you. I want to be genuine. I want to invest in this relationship, but I might not know how. I might not have the steps. It's not to be disingenuous. It's to be genuine. It's so that I can create the connection that I want to create, but haven't found the words or the right strategy to do so. So I'm going to look at the playbook from people who have been very successful at doing the things I want to do, and I'll implement that in a genuine way. When we have people with whom we have bonds in our life, when we have Think about those that you share a bond with. You have shared secrets. You have told them personal things. Because the difference between a secret and a confession is the secret can be the secret to the Kentucky Fried Chicken, the secret formula. I know it, you don't. I'm going to tell it to you. A confession is I'm telling you something personal about me that other people may not know. And then the favor, of course, is I'm going to ask you to do something for me. And when you say yes, the people who have asked us for favors and we have said yes, the people for whom we do favors, the people who do favors for us are people with whom we share bonds. And when you can do all three of those things with somebody, you cannot help but form a bond that did not exist before. So if you find that you are struggling dealing with somebody, and when we stop and think about it, many times what can really help overcome any communication issue is simply bonding with them and gaining their trust, gaining confidence. Try that 3-step process: secret, confession, favor, and voila, watch how you will gain trust and confidence instantly because you know the right steps to take and you implement them. Simple as that. And now we have come to our principle of the week. This week, I'm going to give you a principle that I find very useful in my day-to-day life. And that principle is we are all doing the best we can with the skill set we have. Remember when you're dealing with your spouse or a friend or a coworker, a stranger who treats us poorly? If that person, at the moment they treated you poorly, could have instead shown you great love and received great love at the same time while getting their needs met, they would have done that. We all would. We all would, because that's our natural state. Our natural state is giving and receiving immense love while getting all of our needs met. That's natural. So when somebody's not doing that, when they're behaving in a way that we don't like, that's not natural. They're hurting, and hurting people hurt people. But when it comes right down to it, we are all innocent. We are all as innocent as the day we were born. We are either innocent or we are not. And we are. We are all made of the same pure stuff. It's just that, again, illusions tend to distract us from that truth many times. And we believe that. We believe that we are threatened. We believe that this is wrong and this is right. There is, of course, right and wrong, but we believe that these things are somehow a threat to us. We believe that we must behave the way we're behaving at the moment to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves or our family. Whatever the reason is, somebody's misbehaving or acting out, acting in a way that is not loving towards you. It is simply because they don't get it. They don't have the skill set that you may have, or we may be developing together, to show them the light, the way. They don't have that skill set. If they did, they would be showing you great love and at the same time getting their needs met. If they're not doing that, there's something wrong. And like when there's something wrong with a baby, we don't say to a baby when they're crying, "What's wrong with you?" Now, when we have a difficult adult with us, we feel like doing that. "What is wrong with you?" It's the exact same situation. Babies are simply crying out because they're hurting. And when a person treats us poorly, they're simply crying out because they're hurting. But they are as innocent as that baby. They just have not yet developed the skill set to help them return to that natural state of giving and receiving great level, getting all of their needs met at the same time. And if we are about to have a difficult conversation with somebody, if we're about to confront, let's say, a family member on their behavior, an employee, a boss, when we come from the perspective, because remember, when you change your perspective, the things you look at literally change. There are many things where when you look at it from a different way, it looks different. It actually is different. Things are only what they appear to be to us. We give it meaning. And when you change your perspective, when you're about to deal with a difficult person, and instead of coming to it from a perspective of, "I'm going to teach you a lesson," or "I'm going to show you the way you need to be behaving," or "I'm going to," whatever it is. Instead, if you think to yourself first and foremost, they are innocent. They did not mean to hurt me. Even if they did mean to hurt you, they didn't. That was crazy thinking. They were out of their minds. They are an innocent person. They're doing the absolute best they can with the skill set they have. And it is my job to show them that, hey, it's possible. I'm about to show you that I need to get my needs met, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. I'm going to communicate with you in an assertive, direct way, and I'm going to do it also in a loving way. Because remember, how do we teach? If you want to teach somebody, that they need to behave differently, that they need to stop behaving the way that they are. They need to correct their behavior. Basically, what we're trying to do in all of those situations is show somebody how to get their needs met while giving and receiving love, while behaving like an adult, while behaving like a civilized person. What is the very best way to teach? By demonstration. So I'm going to demonstrate to you how to do that by starting out from coming from the perspective that you are already innocent to begin with. I'm just going to take that for granted. And you poor thing, you've evidently lost your way a little bit. You've gone off the path. You haven't yet developed or found the skills that are going to help you get your needs met at this moment. So what I'm going to do is talk to you about it, show you how I do things in a loving way, in a kind way, in a merciful way, however you want to call it. Those are just my words, because that is going to be the best way to actually show you in the end how to communicate the way I'd like you to, because we teach by demonstration. And when you teach somebody, I know you're innocent, they're going to then respond in kind. And that is your principle of the week. Remember, we are all doing the best we can with the skill set we have. The next time this week, when you see somebody acting in a way that makes you think, what is wrong with you? They're doing the best they can with the skill set they have. They're innocent, and show them the innocence in you and that you see the innocence in them. Remember, things behave differently when they are seen. See people as innocent. This is Dan O'Connor and Buddy. Oh, Buddy's taking a nap. Signing off.